Minions. To some people, the Minions are lovable little guys who bring joy to the masses, but to others, they're a scourge, a plague that has infested each and every inch of popular media. And personally, I never really cared for Minions. I was in high school when they became popular and built up a cynical hatred towards them and everything they stood for. But now that I'm older and Despicable Me 4 is out, I want to revisit this franchise from start to end, see if my feelings on Minions have changed at all, and rank each film on this tier list. So I'm gonna start where the series began.
You, Ninja. You, kid. You're adopted.
The first Despicable Me is a fun little film with a solid emotional core. Illumination gets a lot of crap for its less than stellar film selection, but I honestly enjoyed this film on rewatch. First of all, the film is pretty funny. I personally wouldn't call this a knee slapper or anything, but it got me to chuckle a couple times here and there.
Someday I'm going to go to the moon. NASA isn't sending the monkeys anymore.
This film used the Minions very sparingly, which I think helped to make them more palatable. They're around here and there, but they're rarely ever the focus. I would go as far as to say I actually enjoyed the Minions in the first movie. Also, Gru is a solid main character. He has a really fun design, a fantastic vocal performance by Steve Carell, and a really well-written character arc. When we're first introduced to Gru, he's an absolute menace. He's tormenting children, freezing people, and driving like he's from Texas. Seriously, Texas drivers scare me. But he's evil, awful. One might even call him despicable. And like most of us, he has goals and dreams. He wants to be the ultimate criminal mastermind and fulfill his lifelong dream of going to the moon. But over the course of the film, Gru has this arc of realizing these goals won't give him any sort of fulfillment. He spends the movie bonding with these girls and forms a genuine father-daughter relationship with them. He learns that this new family he found means a lot more to him than any sort of prestige he would earn from stealing the moon. And my absolute favorite part of his arc and the entire film is when Gru is in space, as he holds the moon in his hand. He finally made it, even when everyone else doubted him. He should be filled with joy, but then he looks over and sees the ticket from the girls' dance recital, and suddenly he's not happy anymore, because it's at this moment that he finally realizes no amount of materialistic achievement will ever fill that family-sized hole in his heart. I adore the message about family in this film, and I think it's cool that this movie has a really positive depiction of adoption, especially since in a lot of movies, adoption is shown to be sort of a negative thing. The girls themselves are really well done characters. Margot, Edith, and Agnes all have their own unique characterization, and really help to give Gru's story a strong emotional impact. And I think all the voice actresses do a really solid job. Oh shoot, is that iCarly? I do have some issues with the film though. For one, I think the pacing is off. The film as a whole is just really slow. It takes a while for the plot to really get going, and a lot of the scenes themselves have a really slow feel to them.
Oh yeah! Ha! That's cringe.
And then there's Vector. Look, this guy is an icon. This meme has created societal brain rot. There's that TikTok kid who made Vector his whole personality. But as a villain, he's kind of flat. He has a motivation of proving to his dad that he's a legit villain, but it's really not that interesting, and his actions in the film are equally not as interesting. There's a lot of good things in this film, and some bad, but there is one thing that made this franchise culturally relevant for this long, and that's the memes.
I'm trying to avoid any sort of contact with my eyes with this thing. I can't look.
There are so many classic memes in this film, from
In terms of money, we have no money. I sit on the toilet. What?
to
You don't love me!
this image of Gru with a gun. This isn't actually in the movie, I just think it's kind of funny. And I haven't even mentioned all the boomer Facebook minion memes. Exercise? I thought you said extra fries. Yes, I meant to fitness. Fitness burger into my mouth. Your father and I are getting a divorce. It's so stupid. The first Despicable Me film isn't the greatest movie of all time, but it's pretty good, so I'm gonna put it in A tier.
That girl in the black, I think I'm in love with her. Go talk to her. No.
Despicable Me 2 is a bit of a jumbled mess. A sequel to Despicable Me could go a lot of different ways. Maybe Gru could struggle with living a normal life and is thrown into an adventure where the fate of the world is at risk. Or maybe Gru struggles being a dad as the girls begin to grow up and have their own issues. Or perhaps Gru has a romance story and struggles with finding love. Despicable Me 2 does all these stories and fails to do any of them very well. In the main plot of the film, Gru is recruited by the AVL to investigate this mall. and find out which supervillain is behind the evil grape juice.
That's weird. It tastes kind of dark and twisted.
And this storyline is mostly fine. There are some fun hijinks with Gru and Lucy investigating the different store owners. We also cut back to the minions who are being kidnapped over the course of the film and are then turned into evil grape juice monsters. And when the big bad El Macho is revealed, I think the action is really enjoyable to watch. The evil minions become really intimidating, and the shootout scenes where the heroes cure them was really entertaining. However, El Macho is a really bad villain. On the surface, he's pretty cool. I like the lore Gru drops on him about how he strapped dynamite onto his chest and rode a shark into a volcano. That's pretty based. But outside of that, he's just evil guy who wants to take over the world. And I hate how he's used in the film. At first, he's presented as a red herring, but then there's a big twist reveal that he's actually a villain. And I understand this movie was made for children, but come on. A kid could have seen that coming a mile away. There's also a very generic story where Margot has a crush on this gamer boy.
And my dream is to one day play video games for a living.
The f*** you say to me, you little
And Gru doesn't like this because overprotective dad trope. I will say though, the movie at least gives Gru a reason as to why he would be so overprotective. He had a traumatic experience that still haunts him to this day, and now he wants to protect her from that pain. But this story abruptly ends out of nowhere. One moment, Margot and the gamer boy are dancing, and the next, she's sad because he's dancing with another girl. So Gru murders that kid and the film moves on. There's no end to this arc. Gru and Margot don't find some kind of understanding. It just feels like a wasted story. And then there's what I believe should have been the hard focus of this film, the romance between Gru and Lucy. On their own, I like both of these characters. Gru is still a great caring dad who has nice moments with each of the girls. I especially like the scene where he's sad and has an honest conversation with Agnes, who tries to cheer him up. And even though he's not a villain anymore, he still has a bit of a mean edge. He kills gamer boy, sprays that woman with a hose, and lets his dog pee on his neighbor's flowers. Also, it's kind of funny how he's scared of women.
Scared of what? Women? No, that's bonkers.
You seem quieter than usual tonight.
Every year I come here, I wonder if it should be the last time. If I should put the past behind me.
And I like Lucy as a new addition to this film. I think she's really funny, and Kristen Wiig gives a good vocal performance. However, these two together don't work all that well. They have a few cute scenes together and some sequences where they bond, but overall, they really don't have enough screen time together. Their relationship didn't feel natural, it felt mandatory, and it feels especially underdeveloped because the movie ends with their wedding. There was a 147-day time jump, so I guess we can infer these two really like each other, but the movie does a really poor job at showing it, and the wedding itself is mostly fine. Agnes gives a little speech about her new mom, which is cute, but then it ends in a dance sequence because of course it does. And if they play a Minion remix of the YMCA like it's a 2016 Call of Duty Zombies video. Not to mention though, I don't think this film is bad. There are quite a few things I like about it. I already mentioned how I like some action scenes and some nice character moments. And Despicable Me 2 is just as funny as the original film. I think the minions were used well, they did not get on my nerves at all. I especially love the scene where the stronger minions decide to attack the runt of the litter and devour its flesh. That was pretty funny. But this film isn't as memeable as the first. I think the only meme I could remember was,
Are you single?
all in all, Despicable Me 2 is a serviceable sequel. It's not bad, but the story could have been cleaned up a little bit more. It's still a lot of fun, really funny, and a perfect watch with the family. However, this film is the reason Happy by Pharrell Williams came into existence, so for that it gets deducted a whole letter grade. So I'm gonna put Despicable Me 2 in C tier.
Never ask a woman her age, a man, his salary. The Minions where they were on November 22nd, 1963.
Minions is the movie that made Universal realize, oh yeah, these little freaks really bring in the dough. And they do. Minions made a whopping $1.1 billion at the global box office, even though the film itself is really bad. The Minions worked in the previous two films because they were on the side. Their wacky shenanigans were in addition to the main characters and their stories. And this film's main story is so very thin. The Minions are trying to find a new supervillain boss, and that's it. Everything else is your basic minion situations, which gets old very quick. They sneak into a department store after hours. They assist a crime family in a robbery. They witness a mad scientist accidentally game end himself. You know, typical stuff. The film is just so boring, and it doesn't get any better when the minions are recruited by the film's main antagonist, Scarlet Overkill. Because again, they do more goofy stuff. They steal the crown from the queen, rest in peace. Bob becomes king of England, and they have an accidental assassination attempt on Scarlet. There's just not much substance in this film at all. And Scarlet is a laughably terrible villain. She gets mad at the minions because they accidentally claimed the crown and Bob became king. She's mad at this because it was her lifelong dream to take over England and become the new queen. This conflict gets resolved in like 2 seconds because Bob gives up the crown. Because of course he does. He's a minion. His whole purpose in life is to serve. But then this random British guy shows up and it says, actually, it's against the law to just hand over the crown to someone else. And this conflict gets resolved in 2 seconds when Bob changes the law. So you'd think, okay, problem solved, right? Scarlet is now going to be queen and keep her loyal minions around, who bent over backwards to make sure she could fulfill her dream. She locks them up because she thinks they betrayed her. Look, I know this movie is aimed at kids, but kids deserve better than this. You can't make your villain this irrationally stupid. People will make fun of you. I think the final act big action sequence is somewhat cool. I like the giant Kevin. And this sumo guy is voiced by Hiroyuki Sanada, by the way. That's crazy. But all this action coming off some baffling writing decisions makes it less enjoyable. The film does have some good stuff, I guess. The main minions all have distinct characterization, so that's something. Kevin is the leader and the smart one. Bob is the young one who wants to help. And Stuart is the hot one. Or Stuart is the musical one who is unironically better than the Beatles. There's also a Beatles cameo, by the way. The opening scene is kind of funny. The minions kill Napoleon. That's cool. I like the Gru cameo. The narrator calls him despicable. That's fun. Yeah, I got nothing. The Minions movie is just not for me. I don't think it works at all. The whole premise of the film is taking the short, fun Minion sections from the first 2 films and stretching them into a feature-length movie without any real thought given to the screenplay. So I'm gonna put it in D tier.
We got a #1 victory royale, yeah, Fortnite.
Alright, it's time for a hot take. I think Despicable Me 3 is better than Despicable Me 2, and that's largely because the story is much more focused. Gru has a solid character arc of realizing he's not the failure he thinks he is, nor the failure he's been told he is by both his boss and his own mother. And along the way, he also brings up his brother Drew, who also feels like a failure thanks to their dad. And in general, I think Gru and Drew have a really well-written brotherly relationship. My favorite parts of the film were the ones with them just being bros and doing villainy together.
I'm okay.
There is a bit of a half-baked liar reveal element to their story though. Drew agrees to help Gru steal the diamond from Balthazar Bratt under the guise of it being an act of villainy, when in all actuality Gru is just stealing it back from the villain in order to get his job back. This reveal makes Gru and Drew have a big fight where they say things they don't really mean, and then they make up like 2 minutes afterwards. It just feels wrong to really build up this story only for it to not really matter in the end. But even outside of that, them building each other up in a way neither of them have had from a family member before was really well done, and that support system helps each character to grow. Also, Steve Carell does an excellent job in this film. He's always great as Gru, but his work as Drew adds a whole new level, especially the scene where Gru is doing a Drew voice and Drew is doing a Gru voice.
And I'm kind of an idiot.
This bit only works because of how talented Steve Carell is. There are a couple other side stories I enjoyed as well. The Minions are back to being funny. I liked most of their adventures trying to find new employment, especially the sequence where they go to jail. Yeah, this is really something. They get banana tattoos, they intimidate other prisoners through gang affiliation, and there's even a fun breakout sequence. Man, maybe we should get a whole movie of Minions in jail.
What?
I said, I don't know what I said.
Lucy has a simple story about trying to be a better mom. And there's a nice moment where Margot actually gives her some advice. Because when you think about it, Margot kind of was the parent figure to Edith and Agnes before they met Gru. These two have a really wholesome relationship. The villain of the movie is okay. Balthazar Bratt has a basic story. His TV show from the 80s was canceled, so he wants to send all of Hollywood to space as revenge. It's not great, but it's something, I suppose. I mostly like him for his 80s aesthetic, because not only does it make for a fun array of gadgets and weapons, but it thematically works for his character. He's still living in the past, unable to get over that one bad thing that happened in his life. So of course he would surround himself with all the things from a time period in which he was still happy. And the final fight of the film is really well done, with the girls in danger and Drew maybe hurt. It feels like Brat creates some actual stakes. The dance fight is kinda silly, but I'm sure the kiddos love it. I don't think he's on the same level as Vector, but Brat certainly gets the silver medal in Despicable Me villains. The animation feels like an improvement in some areas, especially in the more action-packed moments, although Illumination still sometimes struggles with character design. The new head of the AVL lady looks cursed. She looks like the unholy love child of Wallace and Sid from Toy Story. Please get her away from me. So yeah, I found Despicable Me 3 really surprising. It has some fun character moments, real stakes, solid comedy, and a wholesome family story. So I'm going to put Despicable Me 3 in B tier. I don't know how what? Why is Minions: The Rise of Gru actually good? Maybe the past 6 hours of Minions content has completely rotted my brain, but I had a really good time with this film. For starters, adding Gru into the mix perfectly fixed my biggest issue with the original film. It's not just an hour and a half of straight Minions nonsense. There's enough to break up their scenes. Sometimes we focus on the main group of Minions, but we might also focus on Gru, or the main villains, or another character who I'll talk about shortly, just you wait. But I think the film is really well paced and gives each character enough screen time. Also, the Minions and Gru both have decent character stories. In the first act of the film, they have a heated argument where the Minions messed up again, and Gru thinks he doesn't need them anymore. He then immediately gets kidnapped. Oh no! The Minions go on a journey of trying to save Gru, as well as trying to prove to him that they're worthy of being his minions. They track him down to San Francisco, they learn Kung Fu, and they put themselves on the line to fight for Gru. It's a simple story, but it works for them because they're simple characters, and Gru's story is even more impactful. Initially, he thinks the Minions aren't good enough for the level of villainy he wants to operate on, but once he's captured by Wild Knuckles and is sort of forced to be a minion for him, Gru gains a better appreciation for the work the Minions did for him, and his story comes full circle when at the end, he finally rehires the Minions after seeing how hard they fought to save him. This is a really solid story that made the relationship between Gru and his minions even stronger. We're also introduced to a new team of supervillains who are cool but not the most complex. The Vicious Six are a fun cast of villains and they're reasonably intimidating. They're also played by a celebrity cast, which is pretty fun. Jean-Claude Van Damme voices a French crab guy called Jean-Claude. Get it? And the action scenes are surprisingly well choreographed. I wouldn't say they're on the same level as something like Kung Fu Panda, but being a level below that is not bad at all. The chase sequence after Gru steals the stone is really exciting. The Minion Kung Fu training montage is a blast, and the final battle where the Minions take on the Zodiac powered villains is a fantastic payoff to what the story built to. Also, the 70s aesthetic really helps to set this film apart from the previous entries in this franchise. The music choices, the editing choices, and the character designs all help to plant the audience in this era. And there's even a very 1970s opening credit sequence, which is so funny. But my absolute favorite part of the film, the one character, the one story that stuck with me more than anything, Otto. Man, I freaking love Otto. At first I thought he was going to be just another lame side character, but no. Oh no. Otto is an Odysseus level hero with a story to rival the epics of old. At the beginning of the film, Otto mistakenly trades the Zodiac stone for a pet rock, and in the shame of his mistake, Otto sets out to make things right. He travels the world in search of the stone, facing harsh deserts, making new friends, and nearly dying to redeem his grave error. Otto is such a funny character and has the most memorable character arc of the whole film. So yeah, Minions: The Rise of Gru really surprised me. It's not an absolutely perfect film, but in the context of a Minions film tier list, I think this is realistically as good as this franchise could possibly get. So I'm gonna do something crazy and place it in S tier.
Yeah,
Despicable Me 4 is, it's better than Minions, I guess. Yeah, this movie's not great. While the other films in this franchise have their own different flaws and issues, Despicable Me 4 suffers from being just generic. The main story is not a good way to continue this franchise. The main villain of the movie, Maxime, breaks out of prison and seeks revenge on Gru. So Gru and his family are placed under AVL protection and have to live in a new home with new identities. And because of this, a lot of the franchise side characters are completely absent from the movie. Dr. Nefario, Gru's mom, the dog, and Drew play no major part in the film at all. And the characters who are still here don't do anything interesting in the story. They all go on these wacky adventures and try to hide their real identities. Lucy is a fake hairstylist and messes up someone's hair, and that person is mad and chases her in a grocery store. Margot goes to a new school and is bullied.
I don't want to fight you, Flash.
I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
That's it. Margot has like 8 lines in the movie. Edith and Agnes don't have much going on. There's a scene with them in a karate dojo where they kill the instructor. That's pretty much it. And Gru's story is especially stupid. Literally the first day he gets there, he's found out by the neighbor girl Poppy, who's a villain and has a lisp and is voiced by Joey King. Just the full gambit of annoying.
I don't respect boomers. I just mock them.
This is disgusting. If I could kill it, I would.
But instead of telling AVL that he's been made and his family needs to be relocated, Gru just agrees to be blackmailed by this girl and agrees to commit this heist. And because of this, Gru is found by Maxime and now his whole family is in danger. The pacing of Despicable Me 4 is just awful. The timeline of this movie is, the family gets relocated, nothing happens for 50 minutes, Maxime finds them and the final battle happens. And speaking of Maxime, he's fine. Will Ferrell gives a really solid vocal performance, but the character himself is whatever. He has a solid enough motivation for hating Gru and his plan is actually threatening, but he lacks the flair that previous Despicable Me villains had. And the final battle between him and Gru straight up sucks. The scene goes by really quick, Lucy and the girls are completely sidelined, and it doesn't even have any interesting choreography or set pieces. It does conclude the storyline of baby Gru not liking his father, but it feels like a really rushed conclusion. Most of this fight also lacks a certain group of characters who are all over the marketing of the film, the Mega Minions. The Mega Minions are such a letdown. They are cool in concept, but they do nothing in the movie. They're created, they have a scene where they save random citizens, and they show up at the end to beat up Maxime, who is already defeated by Gru and Gru Jr. They serve no purpose in the movie at all other than to eat up screen time. But really, the worst crime that this movie commits is the fact that it's just not that funny. While the humor in the previous films wasn't really aimed at me, I could still enjoy some of the jokes and humorous moments. I just couldn't find anything this movie presents entertaining, and I don't think I'm the only one. I was in a packed theater with a lot of kids, but I didn't hear any laughs. Everyone just seemed bored. So yeah, I don't have much to say about Despicable Me 4 because it doesn't have much to offer. It's not a terrible movie. I'm sure people can be perfectly entertained by it for an hour and a half, but it's just very boring and very uninteresting, and the most generic of the entire franchise. And to add insult to injury, the movie ends with a musical number that is ear-bleedingly terrible. It's that Everybody Wants to Rule the World song, and it's truly awful. So I'm going to put Despicable Me 4 in D tier. And that's the tier list. I have to say, my opinion has definitely softened on these movies. I could actually see myself rewatching a couple of them every now and then. Of course, this ranking is just my opinion. I'm sure all of you have your own rankings. So leave a comment and let me know how you would rank the Despicable Me films. And if you want to watch another ranking, click here to watch my ranking of all the Mad Max movies. Or you can click here to watch the video that YouTube picked out just for you.